Well, we have Kieran with us in our audience, and Kieran, you did break that cycle. You were in difficulty with your weight, and look at you now, you're doing brilliantly. But what happened? What flicked the switch for you?
Thanks, Claire, for having me on. It's hard to kind of pinpoint maybe the time or the day that it happened, but it's probably just kind of a slow crawl, maybe breaking trends that were in my life. And there was kind of one moment I remember in particular where the smartwatch I had in my wrist actually vibrated and said to me that I had an overly high heart rate for inactivity. I was probably sitting on the couch for 3 or 4 hours watching the TV, and my watch was kind of saying, like, what's going on? And maybe that was just the spark that maybe triggered some things, but we should tell people, you were 25 stone, were you? Yeah, I was 159 kg, so I was 25 stone.
We're seeing the picture of you there. I mean, you're barely recognisable. How much have you lost, do you mind me asking you?
So I've lost 50 kilograms, so about 8 stone, so I'm down to 105 kilograms now.
That's phenomenal. That's rare, is it, Donal?
I think, as mentioned,
without bariatric surgery, is that rare?
No, I mean, without bariatric surgery, that's rare. There maybe are 5% of people can achieve that weight loss and sustain it. And in our clinic, we have lots of people who've lost a lot of weight many times, and the body just wants to get back up to that previous peak weight. It's like the blood donor can give blood because they know the blood count will be brought back up.
And the body keeps trying to fight its way back up.
The body does the same with its total energy store.
That's a hard thing to hear, Kieran, is it?
It was, but it was a hard process. Like, you'd be under no illusions that this wasn't some quick fix that just happened overnight. Like, I was blessed to have a lot of support from my friends, family, and involved, like, GA club, for example. Like, every time I kind of felt like I was falling off the wagon, I got a lot of support. And there was kind of moments where I said, maybe, to hell with this, like, what's the point of this? Like, it'd just be easy to give up. And I probably did give up maybe for a few days every now and again, but sometimes thankfully I had resilience to kind of keep going, and it's probably something that people do struggle with. Like, and the stigma was mentioned, the idea that I obviously was a lot to blame for how I got there, but there's obviously outside conditions that didn't help, and I was able to tackle them and maybe identify some things in my life that I could change. So there were certain things like we see all the junk food there that's on the table. Like,
were you eating this kind of stuff now?
Now or back then?
Back then, were you?
Back then, I would have been, and probably a lot of it was kind of late night, maybe takeaways was probably my biggest weakness, because I was involved a lot in meetings and kind of different things I was at with different associations, and I was coming out at 10 o'clock at night and I just had cravings, etc.
Chips.
Yeah, there were a lot of different takeouts were making a living off me. But thankfully, I think one of the big messages was I didn't bring my enemies home. I think now you wouldn't see those things in my house because I'd eat them all. Like, I would be, like, you're only kind of a moment away from kind of doing it any time like that and relapsing there to eating bad food. So you kind of have that cravings and they come and go, and you just maybe you drink something different, like a glass of water or even like a green tea or something, and you feel like that's something amazing I've done. Like, when in the past I would have said maybe I would have been the person who had the 6 bags of crisps just because they were there.
And do you feel it's a constant battle, or is it just worth so much more to you now to feel the way you feel health-wise, that you don't have that row going on in your head all the time?
No, I would actually, it's a balance. I think there is the constant struggle, and there is the idea of, like, I am constantly at war with kind of like the weight and kind of putting it back, but I kind of find that that's kind of a way that suits my personality, that it's adversarial and I'm not going to let it get the better of me. I have to constantly keep it in check, because if I say to myself, oh, I've kind of done it now, because back in 2015 I'd lost 2 or 3 stone and I was kind of thinking I was doing great, and I kind of went back to maybe giving up on exercise and kind of eating again, and I ended up going back even heavier, getting to that 25 stone. So now I'd like to think that if I can keep working at it and maybe see that kind of, maybe it's the adversary in me kind of, that I have to constantly compete with it to be better, like I can improve.
It's tough though. It sounds like it's a hard road, you know. I know you're prepared to do it and you're ready for that battle, but even the language around it, you know, keeping the enemy out of the house and the adversarial nature of it, it's tough.
The self-stigma, the people who are hardest on themselves are people living with obesity. We see they're judged heavily. Yeah,
even by themselves?
Even by themselves, clearly.
But a great job, Kieran, and continued success to you. It's wonderful, really, to hear that it can be done, you know.
It's an inspiring story.
The hope is there, it really is.
It's an inspiring story.
Thank you both very much indeed to Donal and to Sarah.